And we know it takes more than that. We know that we are being formed in many ways. And so we're doing this series to talk about how to be formed in the right ways. We're basing this off a book called The Deeply Formed Life. It was Christianity Today's Book of the Year in 2021. It's written by Rich Villodas. He's a church leader and author in Queens. He leads a very diverse church. I think Jim Barnett and others recently visited there while on a trip and had good things to say about that church. Rich has been quite influential with this book and others, talking about how to model ourselves after the life and practices of Jesus. We are all being formed. The question is not, are we being spiritually formed? The question is, how are we being spiritually formed, and by what are we being spiritually formed? I have really come to believe that we are formed most by what we do, not by what we believe. I think both are important. But if you want to know the character of a person, it's better to see how they spend their time than to ask them what they believe. We are formed by what we do. We can form ourselves into different kinds of people by the things that we do. And so today we're starting with one of the practices Villodas names a slow reading of Scripture. That's what he calls it, a slow reading of Scripture. So let me start by asking you this. Have you ever been given something or something is written to you that you just read over and over and over? I have in my office some books, Bibles, gift books that I have that people wrote in, even from my high school graduation. And I remember reading over some of those encouraging messages and taking my time and reading it again and going back to it years later and reading it again, savoring every word. Or on the other hand, sometimes you get difficult messages and you read those over and over again and you're trying to read tone into a word or trying to figure out the 5 different things a person could have meant. I've done that too. Maybe for you, it was a yearbook that someone signed at some point. And, you know, you've got all the stay cool, don't ever change, see you after the summer. It's all that. But maybe in the middle of all those, maybe it was a cute boy or girl, or maybe it was a teacher who wrote something meaningful. And you spent time reading that over and over again. Or on the flip side, maybe online you read some comments to one of your posts. And you read those over and over again. And you're trying to figure out, what could this person possibly be thinking? We know what it's like to read things slowly. We do it. That's called meditating in one way. We all meditate. It's just, again, what are we meditating on? Is it things that are forming us in good ways, things that are forming us in bad ways? The problem with slow readings of Scripture is that we are primed more and more not to read anything slowly. There was a recent article in The Guardian about how skimming is the new normal. In fact, they gave a group of students the same reading assignment, same novel. Some read it in a print book, some read it on a Kindle, not even an iPad where they could be distracted by other things, just like a Kindle Paperwhite with nothing else to do. And then they did a reading comprehension test, and the students who read the print book did better. Now, I'm not opposed to digital reading. I read on a Kindle, but what we're learning is that whatever it is, when we read it on a screen, our brains read it in skim mode because we think it's a quick article. And so we scroll quickly, and even if it's a novel, even if it's something deep and rich, if we read it that way, we will sometimes skim, and we don't take it in. So we are up against a skimming culture. We're reading quickly and trying to get the 3 points, the one takeaway. That has become our new normal. And we have to work against it. If we're going to be formed by Scripture, we have to recover this slow, deep reading of the text. So we start today in Psalm 1. That's where we are rooting this sermon. And we're reminded of different things in this psalm. We can read it and talk about the good way and the bad way and the two paths in life, but I want to pay attention to this psalm in a little bit different way. Psalm 1 says, "Blessed is the one who doesn't walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields fruit in its season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers." Look at that word, meditate. We've talked about this before. The word in Hebrew is hagah, and it does tend to mean sometimes chewing or ruminating on. Other times it's even translated as the roar of a lion or the coo of a bird. Every now and then it means to speak, but it is sort of this chewing and ruminating on something. And then look at the timing. When does this psalmist say he's doing this? Day and night. Not once weekly. Day and night, I'm meditating on this. And the result is, if you do this, you prosper. Doesn't mean you get rich or get a new car. That's not what we're talking about. I'm not preaching that to you. When you do this, God is blessing your ways because you're spending time being formed by His Word. This psalm is similar to what Moses commissions Joshua to do as he enters the new land. Moses tells Joshua to keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Notice how he says to keep it on your lips, by the way. Not keep it in your mind, not keep it in your heart, on your lips. This is just a side note, but I am more and more convinced that even if I'm sitting alone, maybe vocalizing Scripture will help. Now, if other people come across me, they're going to think I look very silly. But I will tell you that for the first part of history where humanity could read it, they would have thought you looked silly if you were sitting there reading something silently. Why are you staring at a scroll or a piece of paper? Reading was done aloud. And I'm wondering more and more how much reading silently makes me skim. And maybe I just need to slow down and, just slowly, softly vocalize some of these things as I'm reading them. That's a side note, but I'm wondering about that. The main point is that we pay close attention to these words, and we do it often. And you know the kind of culture we live in. If we read even a beautiful piece of poetry like Psalm 1, what we really want is the one-page executive summary. Blessedness is achievable through strategic alignment with righteous behavior. Avoid negative brand associations like wicked and sinners. Embed delight-driven engagement with legacy scripture, 24/7 meditation cadence. Long-term ROI includes stability, productivity, and divine endorsement. That's what we want generated sometimes from a piece of poetry. Can you give me the 3 or 4 key takeaways so I can move on to item 2 and 3 and 4 on my to-do list? That's not how Scripture works. It's not how biblical poetry functions. It's not how it's intended to be read. If we go back to Psalm 1, we imagine a fruit yielding, which is a productive and well-formed tree. We see that our meditation on Scripture is not just about encouragement, although it is, but it's about formation. I don't just read it to get strength when something's hard. I read it and meditate on it to be formed into a different kind of person. And when I do this kind of meditation, then I get the kind of formation and growth and health that this psalm promises. It's slow and steady. So look at these pictures of trees. This is from the Unsworth family planting their tree that we all got back last fall. And now it's starting to bud. It's slow, steady growth. It's planted, the roots are growing, it's budding, it's being watered. This is slow, steady growth. It's not quick. It's not overnight. It's not done just reactively. It's slow, steady growth that makes those roots spread out and makes the whole tree healthy. This idea of meditating on Scripture is not just in Psalm 1. It is all throughout the Psalms. It is all throughout Scripture. It might seem foreign to us, but it was not foreign to the world of Scripture. Here are some more verses from Psalm 119. The psalmist says, "How I love your law. I meditate on it all day long. Your commands are always with me and make me wiser than my enemies. I have more insight than all my teachers, for I meditate on your statutes." Kids, if you want to be smarter than your teachers, the psalmist has told you how to do that. Or this verse, Psalm 119, 148. "My eyes stay open through the watches of the night, that I may meditate on your promises." Look at the timing again, by the way. Through the night. Through the night. In all of these verses, meditating has content associated with it. Meditating on something. So this is not, like Christian meditation is not what you get on an app like Headspace, where you have a beautiful, soothing, often British voice telling you to empty everything from your mind. That's fine and good. That's not what this is. Meditation, according to Scripture, is about filling, not emptying. I'm not trying to empty and just reach some Zen-like state where I'm not thinking of anything. I am filling myself with Scripture. I'm filling myself with strength from the Lord. It's not closing my eyes and banishing all thoughts. Christian meditation looks like what Paul says to the Philippians, where he says, "Hey, brothers and sisters, if it is true or noble or right or pure or lovely or admirable, excellent, praiseworthy, think about such things." He doesn't say don't think about anything. He says think about these kinds of things. This is what we do when we meditate on Scripture. So how do we do this? You have different ways. There is no one way to do this. I want to talk through one of those ways, but I just want to remind us that to do this, we're going to have to engage a different part of our brain. So a few years ago, Daniel Kahneman wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. Some of you may have read it, where he talks about the two ways that we think and act. One is system one. It's the quick method. It's the responsive. It's what you need if you encounter a bear in the forest. You don't want to analyze things and you just want to run. But when we use that system for something that needs more slowness, more deliberation, we can be hasty and hurried. System two, the slow system, is what makes us deliberate and act more reasonably, think more deeply. So here's a couple of examples. So let's say that your boss sends you something that begins with, "Per my last email," and your soul leaves your body. System one is where you get out the keyboard flamethrower and send something back telling this person how busy you've been and how you cannot believe they would ever question you like that. System two steps away from your keyboard for a moment, thinks about how to word things, and you send something back that's fair and firm maybe, but also future lawsuit proof. Okay? Or let's say you see a pop-up ad for $500 off a smart refrigerator that writes haikus. I don't know. Okay? And so system one is like, I got to have that. This will be perfect. I cannot believe I've gone without this for all these years. Click, buy, ship. Let's go. And system two says, let me look at some reviews on this. They seem to be all 2 stars. And, my refrigerator makes ice just fine, and also it doesn't spy on me. So I'm going to stick with what I have. We do this a lot. We operate in reactive quick mode, and we have to be deliberate to act with this system 2 brain. We read Scripture sometimes with system 1. Read through it quickly, get one insight, move on. I love plans that have us read through the Bible in a year. Anyone who's done that has to be honest and say, some days it's 11:59 p.m. and you're trying to get through 3 chapters of Leviticus just to check it off. I think that's a good discipline. Please do that. read it through in a year. That's fine. That will not yield for you the same kinds of results as reading through shorter passages and being more deliberative. So it's not one is better than the other. It's just don't only do one without the other. Make sense? So we've got to read with our System 2 hat on to cultivate the fruits of the Spirit and not just make a list and memorize them. Velotis says this kind of reading should form us and not just inform us. So I want to walk us through, just briefly, one way we could do this. Eugene Peterson's Eat This Book. You know Peterson, who translated the Message, wonderful author and pastor and church leader, written so much that has helped so many people. One of the books is about this kind of slow reading of Scripture. Peterson says that this kind of reading guards against depersonalizing Scripture. It keeps us from using Scripture to justify ourselves, because we often do that. This kind of reading fuses the biblical story and my story. He says it's a way of reading that becomes a way of living. Isn't that what we want? For our reading to shape our lives. There are 4 steps to doing this. There are Latin words for it. We're going to also use English words because we're normal people. Step 1 is to read it slowly. So you pick a passage of Scripture that's a verse or two. You read it slowly. Read it aloud. Go where no one's around if you need to so they don't make fun of you. Read it aloud a few times. Then you meditate on it and you consider a particular word or phrase and you chew on it and ask what God might be saying to you. Step 3 is you pray about it. You ask God for illumination. Ask God to show you what He might be saying to you. And 4th, you rest. You just pause to process it. It's a way of intentionally ending your time and transitioning to the next thing you're doing. It's ending well. This is not the only way to do a slow reading of Scripture. It is one way that Christians have done for many, many centuries. You can do this in about 10 minutes. We're going to do it in 2 or 3 here because I want to show you what this could look like. I know some of you do this. Some of you may have tried. Some of you never have. Let's consider a verse like Psalm 28, verse 7. I'm going to read this 3 times slowly, and I just want you to focus your attention. Some of you can focus best by closing your eyes and just listening. Some of you focus best by looking at the words too. It doesn't matter to me how you do this. But I'm going to read it for us first. This is the read portion. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in Him, and He helps me. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in Him, and He helps me. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in Him, and He helps me. Now I invite you to consider one particular word or phrase. Spend just a few seconds on it and think about what God might be saying to you today. And then we might pray. We might say, God, we acknowledge that You are our strength and our shield. We trust in You, and You help us. And right now we ask You to help us see the ways that You strengthen us. Give us greater trust in You. And we end with a brief moment of silence. Doesn't have to be deep thinking. We are resting in God's presence and preparing to re-enter. That's a brief version of what you could do in a 10-minute time period. Some of you might say, I'm busy. I don't have time for this. You might say, I'm easily distracted. Okay, join the club. That's pretty much all of us. So here's what you could do this week. If you wanted to try this, some homework I'd give you is to take 10 minutes a day, each day this week. Pick one of these passages. If you are a takes pictures of slides kind of person, go for it. Pick one of these passages. Maybe you pick the same one every day. You'd be surprised at what you might learn by chewing on the same passage of Scripture 7 days in a row. Maybe you need a little variety and you want a few passages. Pick one. Spend 10 minutes a day. It can be the same time each day. It can be a different time each day. Pick one and work through these steps and see what happens. But you could imagine a world where this forms you in meaningful ways. What if, because of your deep reading of Scripture, you showed up as a different person? What if, before a tense meeting with your boss, you had spent time in Exodus 34 and you remembered that God is compassionate and slow to anger, and so you could show more patience in that meeting because you'd been deeply formed? What if before you walked into a hospital room, you had soaked in Psalm 27:1 and you truly believed that the Lord is your light and your salvation, and so fear did not get the final word in that moment? What if in the middle of parenting disappointments, you had read through Jeremiah 18 and you trusted that the potter is still shaping the clay, and so despair did not harden your heart? What if before a hard conversation with someone, you had meditated on 1 Corinthians 13 and you let Paul's definition of love shape the words that come out of your mouth? What if in a moment at the edge of burnout, you had been deeply formed by Ephesians chapter 3, and you were reminded of how high and wide and deep God's love is, and you knew that you didn't have to do anything more to earn that? Author Kathleen Norris says this in one of her books: the true mystics are not those who contemplate holiness in isolation, reaching godlike illumination in serene silence. But instead, it's those who manage to find God in a life filled with noise, the demands of other people, and the relentless daily duties that can consume the self. That's who we're called to be. So may we be filled with the words and the presence of God through this slow reading of Scripture. And may we be formed into people who look more and more like Jesus every day because we engage in